Good afternoon, class. Today, we're going to be conducting a close reading of the poem Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. All right, now I want to begin this lesson by expressing that this poem is a personal favorite of mine. Not only because of the vivid language that's all employed throughout, but also because of the rich history that's included in this poem. We're going to talk about some of that as we're going through. Now, this sonnet is a work of historical fiction, as it does surround a very well-known Egyptian pharaoh, even if he isn't referred to by his more well-renowned name, Pharaoh Ramesses II. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with him, but he is one of the most famous ruling pharaohs. This poet is a sonnet, meaning it is composed of 14 lines and may employ any number of formal rhyme schemes. It's written in iambic pentameter. I'm not sure how many of you have studied poetry or the different forms of poetry, but iambic pentameter means that each unstressed syllable is followed therein by a stressed syllable. And each of these lines, as you guys can see up here, I know it may be a little hard if you're watching this online, we're a little washed out, but I will include a version of the poem for you to be able to follow along as well. But you'll see, if you can see it, that it's broken into 5 sections each line is, or as they're referred to in poetry as feet. Iambic pentameter is one of the most common meters used in English poetry, so you can expect that you will be seeing quite a bit of it in the future. Now, I've given each of you a copy today, a physical copy of this poem to read through. We're going to read through it. First, I'm going to have you read through it on your own, and then we're going to come back and read it together. We're getting ahead of ourselves, so we'll talk about that as we're going. With this, I want you to highlight on it, mark it up as you see fit, and make whatever notes you think you need. All right. As I mentioned before, you can see I projected this up on the board. And if we need, I can always remove the screen and we can highlight it, mark it up, write on it, whatever we need. If you want to I want you to begin first, as I mentioned before, by reading this poem on your own. While you're reading it, be sure to highlight any terms that you're unfamiliar with. Either you haven't seen them or heard them before. Underline any key words or phrases that stand out to you, and annotate the work by making notes in the margins. These notes should detail your thoughts on the poem, portions that you're confused about, questions you have, and points you want to bring up when we come back together and have our whole class discussion. Once you've read through the work on your own, we're going to discuss the annotations you made, along with any questions that you may have, so I can clear up any confusion. All right, now I'm going to go and release you to read it on your own now. Now, if I had students with me, this is what they would be doing. They would read it, they would make their annotations. I'd give them roughly probably about 10 minutes to do so, and then we would meet back together as a class, discuss them. I would provide clarification, and then we would move on to part 2, what we're going to do right now. So this is me coming back. All right, now that we've discussed your annotations and cleared up any confusion that you have, we're going to take some time to reread this poem together as a class. You'll notice that this version of the poem that I've projected up here on the board is broken into its iambic pentameter form, with the stressed and unstressed syllables clearly marked to help you all read the piece clearly. You guys should have that as well in the one I passed out to you. As we're reading, I want you to pay close attention to the stressed and unstressed syllables that are used throughout. Over the years that I've taught this poem, I've found there are a number of terms that the students are typically unfamiliar with. I've listed them here on the board so we can go follow along together. I know it's a little challenging from where we are if you're watching online, but our first one here is visage, okay, which is a face or facial expression. The second is antique, all right, which is a collectible item from an ancient time. The third is sneer. A sneer is a mocking smile. You may want to take these notes down as we're going. These are going to be words that you're going to need to know. Right? Despair. I would think a lot of you may have heard this word, but if you may not know the complete definition, it's complete loss of hope. And finally, colossal. I know I would think a lot of us should be familiar with this word, which is extraordinarily large. Okay. Now that you've read this, actually now let's go ahead and read this together. Okay. So I'm going to read this for us. If I had students in class, I would take a portion where I would read, then I would have them read, and so on and so forth. But since it's just me, I'm going to go ahead and read this all. So, I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and leveled sands stretch far away. All right, so now that we've read this all together, you've read this on your own, we've read it together. What themes stood out to you when you read this poem the first time on your own? Have you recognized themes now that we've read this together that you didn't see before? How about, do you recognize new themes now that you understand these key terms that you may have been unfamiliar with? Some themes that I always notice and stand out to me are the temporary power of nature, the dangers of pride, the corrupting power of vanity, and the unavoidable downfall of even the most powerful of rulers, such as a pharaoh. I want to reflect on these final 3 lines of the poem. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So we're shown here plainly that no matter how powerful a nation is, no matter how powerful a leader is, no matter how much they build up, all these riches are temporary and they will pass away in time. Finally, as a small treat, now that you've read this on your own and we've read it together, I am going to give you a little insight to thoroughly examine the structure of the work by allowing you to listen to an audio version of this poem. It is read by Mr. Bryan Cranston. That name sounds familiar to you, but you're unsure. He is Walter White in Breaking Bad. And he's going to read this during a short video that is shown, animation is shown of what he's talking about to give you some further insight. And overall, it's very well done. There's even one episode of Breaking Bad that is titled Ozymandias. And I hope you enjoy this, and we will discuss after. Now, because of copyright issues, I can't show the audio for it, and it would take well over my time, so I'm going to stop here. Thank you for watching my video.